I want to bring in Congressman Peter Roskam, Republican from Illinois. He's the Chief Deputy Majority Whip. Congressman, thanks so much for being here. You and then State Senator Obama knew each other. You were friendly colleagues in the State Senate in Illinois. You weren't part of the group that played cards with him, but you know him pretty well. Is he bluffing when he says he's not going to put anything on the table? This is about you and your Republican colleagues doing your job, funding the government, raising the debt ceiling, and you're not going to get a concession out of me for not blowing up the economy.
I think President Obama is going to end up negotiating. I think he's on an island that will become more and more flooded. It's too shrill. It's actually not very Obama-like to say, I'm not going to negotiate. He negotiated on the debt ceiling, Jake, in the past 2 times. You know, one time the sequester resulted, one time no budget, no pay resulted coming out of the Senate. So I think he may recharacterize, he may redefine, but in the common understanding from 2 people that know what the word negotiate means, he will negotiate.
How do you respond to the polls that show that overwhelmingly the public disapproves of this tactic that you and your fellow House Republicans are doing? And even if they have mixed feelings or negative feelings about Obamacare, they do not feel this is the right way to do it, and they disapprove. You and your party are constantly talking about the polls showing that the American people are not pro-Obamacare, which we can quibble about polls and dive into that at a different time. But the polls show they don't like what you're doing here with the government shutdown.
To that point, there's no celebration in this shutdown. And in fact, the House Republican position and the bill that was sent over, the last bill that was really sent over to the Senate said, look, let's fund the government and let's do 2 other things. Let's make sure members of Congress are not treated as a special class outside of Obamacare and get a subsidy that the rest of America doesn't get. And the second thing is the same delay that big business got, let's make sure that individuals get that same delay under Obamacare. Those are 2 very reasonable things. And so I think most
of you know Speaker Boehner was fighting against the thing about treating Congress like the rest of the country because, and you can read the National Review has a great story about this, about how this is a demagogue story. Staffers here have no choice but to go into Obamacare because of what Congress has done. And normally what businesses do is they provide a stipend so that these individuals, some of whom I'm sure on your staff make $30,000 a year, need help buying health insurance. But now, because of either, for whatever reason, you're denying them the ability to get a stipend so they can pay for insurance. If you make $30,000 a year, you can't afford to buy health insurance.
Okay, what's the root cause of all of this consternation? Obamacare. That is exactly what is driving this whole...
the high rate of health care.
No, it's Obamacare. That is what has caused this to be such a crescendo. We've seen story after story after story. Rollout has failed. The cost in Illinois is more than it was proposed to be. This is not ready.
How can you say the rollout failed? It happened yesterday.
It's failing. I mean, so other products, other times when you roll things out, think about the expectations. We were told by the President of the United States that 2 things were going to happen. If you like your doctor, you get to keep them. That's not true. And if
I'm not going to quibble with you on that one.
$2,500 per year was going to come down per family. That's not true. So my point is, Obamacare is related to spending. That's why this whole thing is conjoined. And here's where the opportunity is. I think President Obama today could do something very helpful. He says, look, let's not lurch from crisis to crisis. Let's deal with the debt ceiling. Let's deal with it all, and let's deal with it right now. And I'm willing to put entitlements on the table. If he does that, he can pirouette and move the country, I think, in a direction that the country desperately wants to move.
Well, let's talk about the debt ceiling for 1 second, which is because the point I want to make is what President Obama says, I think, is accurate on this. The debt ceiling, the credit rating of the United States, that's different than a government shutdown. I know a government shutdown, these people can get back pay, and it's not pleasant, but it's not necessarily something that can't be, that's irrevocable. If you guys, House Republicans, don't allow the debt ceiling to raise for bills that you and the Senate and President Obama racked up, then that is truly, Harry Reid was calling Dana Bash irresponsible. That is truly irresponsible.
Okay, I'll see irresponsible and I'll raise it by saying this. The only thing that's more irresponsible than that is to raise a debt ceiling with no change in sight. In other words, a trajectory that has now taken us to $16 trillion in debt, and to not deal with that.
16.9, I believe.
So
actually.
not to deal with that, just to say, hey, we're just going to put it on and pile it on and pile it on. So what the House is saying is, let's not do any of that. Let's instead say, let's deal with all of these things. Let's do it in totality. Let's put tax reform in there that can be absolutely transformational.
But President Obama tried to do that with Speaker Boehner, and at the end of the day, and you can fault Obama for trying for moving the goalposts, that whole thing. I don't want to get into that, but at the end of the day, it was unclear that Boehner had the votes and the support to deliver any sort of revenue through tax reform. That Obama is willing to look at cutting spending, he's willing to look at entitlement reform, but there needs to be some tax reform as well, meaning my taxes go up, your taxes go up. But House Republicans, that's a non-starter.
Jake, at the end of the election, the day after the election, John Boehner put $800 billion in new revenue on the table. And that was just completely shunned by the White House. That's disappointing. When you've got the Speaker of the House who puts $800 billion in new revenue saying, look, let's come, you won, Mr. President, we won, the country wants us to work together. I think that's the spirit and the disposition that says we can get these things done. We are at a moment in time when the President of the United States today could do something transformational, and that is bring it all together, sort of raise the stakes and say, let's deal with debt ceiling, let's deal with entitlements. He's put some entitlement changes in his own budget, but he's clung to this orthodoxy that says the only way I'll do this is to raise taxes. We can come up with the money. Let's be smart about how we do it.
To be continued.